Welcome to Liz McMullen Show. I have a new guest on, Jane DiLucchio. Did I get it right?
You got it perfectly right.
Oh my God, that's so exciting.
Rare.
I know, I've mangled so many names in your series. So the book that we're going to be talking about is from the Diego del Valle series.
Diego del Valle, huh?
Yay, got it. So tell me a little bit about how the series started, and also, do you have anything in common with the main character?
The series started because I was on jury duty in Los Angeles at the criminal court building, and I was on a murder case. And I kept thinking, these are really silly reasons for somebody to kill somebody else. In real life, they're horrendous reasons and not interesting at all most of the time. And so I kept thinking, well, why would somebody murder somebody else? And that led me to the ideas of keeping secrets. And that led me to the basic plot line for Relationships Can Be Murder, which was the first Diego del Valle mystery. In terms of what I have in common with her, she's an elementary school teacher, which I was for 10 years. And she lives in the San Fernando Valley of California, and that's where I live. Beyond that, not a lot alike, I tell you. We do have a group of friends like Diego does, and depend a lot on our friends. And Diego's friends, Tully and Felicia and Jenny, are really important to her, and they are in the whole series. So if there's Relationships Can Be Murder, then Teaching Can Be Murder, then Vacations Can Be Murder.
So tell me a little bit about the cast of characters, her friends.
Okay. Well, Diego is the main character, and her friend Tully, I'm sorry, my voice is giving out for some reason. There we go. Her friend Tully is a Texan and larger than life and enjoys everything immensely. She is the counterpoint to Diego. Diego's very solid and dependable and could be boring if she didn't have somebody kind of dragging her onto the wilder side of life, which is Tully's job. And Felicia is the emotional wisdom of the quartet. She functions very much on feeling level, and she helps the rest of them identify those feelings in themselves. Jenny is also a practical one and very logical and kind of helps to keep the others grounded when they go off and are doing things that probably aren't the best things to do, which sometimes they get into predicaments that had they thought about them, they probably wouldn't have done it.
So one of the other things that I had seen in your bio was that you love to travel. What are some of the places that you visited?
Oh, let's see. We've gone to Costa Rica and Panama, and we went to Cuba several years ago before the travel ban was lifted. We've gone to Alaska, which is where Vacation Can Be Murder is set, across Canada, and we're trying to do a lot of touring around the United States. In fact, we just got back from a tour of the Grand Canyon, which I have never seen, and Antelope Canyon, which are slot canyons near the Grand Canyon, which are quite fabulous. If you haven't been there, you should go.
When you travel, do you ever consider it as kind of research for your writing, or you just happen to be inspired by some of the places that you visited?
In the case of Alaska, I did not have an idea that I was going to be writing a book about Alaska. But as we were going through the Talkeetna area, I noticed things about Talkeetna that made it kind of a unique setting. And I really enjoyed listening to people and the stories that they told about the Talkeetna area. I also noticed that the glacial silt that makes up the soil there was a particularly interesting medium in that your foot really does get stuck in it if it gets wet. It makes it into kind of a quicksand. And I started thinking, well, this would be a good way to murder somebody.
Oh, God, love us.
Like a pack that.
That was Mike Quinn's little grunt, for those of you who just heard it. Yeah. Move your...
I hear it.
I know. I'm like, Quinn, stop it. I was like, I'm like, oh, that's charming.
You didn't interview the dog.
No, that's quite all right. When you're talking about quicksand, it reminded me of a meme that I saw on Facebook, and it had photographs from a couple different films, like the Never-Ending Story, and I think The Princess Bride, and something else, and generally from a particular time in the 80s. And it said, quicksand has not been as much of a problem as an adult as I thought it might be. Because there was so many films that you see, like, oh my God, they're in quicksand. Get them something to pull themselves out of it. And I was like, yeah, I was kind of worried about that too. I was like, huh. And I've thankfully never encountered quicksand.
There you go. Well, if you do, you float. Stretch out and float.
Really?
It can pull you out. Yes.
That's so funny. That makes sense. Like after the storm here, because the Barrier Islands where I live in New Jersey, originally there was like an inlet, and then sand started to accrue and eventually get to a particular side where settlement was an option. And so when the big storm happened, a lot of things were undermined. And we had to think about, in a very small, less than a mile square area, about 23 sinkholes. The other day, I think about a year ago, they were doing some work, and then all of a sudden something was kind of sinking on our block. I'm like, oh no, please no. But other than that quirk, you taught the little ones. How young? What ages did you teach?
I taught elementary school. I taught 5th and 6th grade.
5th and 6th grade.
And years before going to community college.
Did you teach English, or
in
just every? No, in
elementary school.
Yeah.
You teach everything.
Oh, you teach everything.
Yes.
Yeah, it depends. In some areas, there are specials. Like there are people, like I guess the main teachers teaches certain things. And then other teachers come in to teach different subjects, especially in the 6th to 8th grade range. So I was curious about that. And in college, you were a professor at a community college?
Yes.
What were some of the things that you did while you were there?
I started a program for the college for adults who needed their GED, high school diploma, or just basic skills before they could go for a job or go to the credit program at the college. So I started that program for them with about 8 students, and now that program is running about 2,000 students a year.
Fantastic. Are you still involved?
I retired from that about 4 years ago.
4 years ago?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I thought you said 40 years ago. I was like, that was a very long time ago.
40 years, that would make me know.
No,
I'm not old there.
I was just going to say, I'm like, that would be a very Benjamin Button thing going on.
Yeah, no, 4 years ago I retired, yeah.
What do you think of retirement? How was it when you finally, you had your last day?
Well, that's bittersweet, that last day, walking away from a program that I had built and people that I've been working with for 25 years. That was hard, but it was time, and we have family obligations. Both my wife and I have older parents, and we needed to be available for them.
Mm-hmm.
That was really what prompted the retirement.
How much time do you devote to writing?
I usually write about, I try to get in 3 hours a day. Try to. Some days, like today, I've been writing for like 5 hours. Some days I get 15 minutes. So it's not consistent for me. You think retirement, hey, you could write whenever you want. It doesn't quite work that way.
The reason why I asked is because you were talking about having to care for older parents. And so I wondered how, like, you were able to make time to do both.
With some difficulty, and some days, like tomorrow, I'm going to be spending the whole day with my mom, so there's no writing that's going to be going on tomorrow. Other times, like today, I've had plenty of time to do some writing, so it depends. Mm-hmm. It's just like when you're working and somehow you squeeze in everything. You just squeeze in everything when you're retired. It's just a different set of
things to juggle.
Priorities. Yes.
How did you find your publisher?
Through the Golden Crown Literary Society.
Woohoo!
I went to the conference in Portland. What was that? 2 years ago, and I made a pitch. I had a publisher 10 years ago for relationships, and then that publishing company sold, and I didn't. We parted company at that point with the new publisher owner. So I continued to write, but I really didn't push getting a publisher. Mm-hmm. When I saw and interviewed with Regal Crest at Portland conference, they were quite happy to give me a contract for all 4 of the manuscripts that I had.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Folks, that doesn't happen in all circumstances.
No, it doesn't. I was amazed and pleased, and I'm still kind of shocked, but happy to have this home. And
that's so cool. I was actually at Portland as well. I've been at every conference since Texas, which is about 4 years ago.
And are you going next month to Alexandria?
I am. I actually work for GCLS, so it's a part of my gig.
Okay, well then that's where I will buy you that drink at the bar.
Woohoo! Yay! Yeah, I manage the mentoring program, and I also manage some multimedia aspects of the education program. So I do that, and I film a documentary series. I'm excited that I'll be interviewing Catherine B. Forrest.
Oh, one of my favorites, yes.
She's just fantastic. And, of course, Faye, who I believe is our keynote this year, Faye Jacobs. And I have to lasso some other people that I'm doing it. And I also will record for my show. But I love GCLS. I like working with them. I started out as a volunteer, and now I'm more involved. And I think it's a great organization. I'm glad that you were able to get so much out of a pitch session. That I'm in awe. That's amazing. Had they read your stuff from the other the other publisher? Like, how did it work?
They were familiar with relationships.
Okay.
Because I'd talked to them before going and told them about it, so they actually researched it.
Oh. Okay.
So I gave them the new manuscript, and they had readers read it and back and said yes.
Yay! That's so wonderful. I love happily ever afters. I do. Even though I write some really twisted stuff. Yeah.
But yours are usually optimistic.
Yes, actually, I have to say, like there is a sunny side, but sometimes I just crack up with the Finding Home series, the second book that we've just finished, and we have a friend of mine's copy editing it before I send it to my publisher. And I have a very gruesome end to some awful characters from from the first book. But I realize that I do that because you read If I Die Before I Wake. In general, even though some really gross or gruesome things can happen, it's not really about that. It's more so, no matter what I write, it's always about deep friendship and love and being there for the people that matter in your life, which is actually not too different from what you were just discussing about the Diego series. Are you politically active? Because the character, she was presented as somebody who spent a lot of her free time, fighting for the rights of children and the environment and whatnot, or is this just a kind of person that a friend of yours is like rather than you?
No, that is who Diego is. I've got to say that my characters talk to me about who they are, and when I try to make them do something that they wouldn't do, they let me know that won't work. And if I try to make them say something that they wouldn't say, it never works out. So
they sound like actors.
Well, it just is weird. It's weird. It's a very strange process, I find, for me in writing. But the political activism, I was at the Washington, D.C. Marches for gay and lesbian rights 3 times, the national marches. And I've done things for abortion rights and all, but not in many years, and not anything to the degree that Diego is. That's her passion in life, standing up for the underdogs and going on political, I don't know, Don Quixote.
Tilting at windmills.
Yes, absolutely.
As you can imagine, there's a lot going on politically this year. You're like, shocker. Is there anything that's happened in the last year or so that you think is going to pop into one of your books?
I don't know. I don't know. I just know that recently in California, they have had a huge scandal going on about the California Coastal Commission. It's supposed to be ensuring that our coastline is, if it's developed, that it's developed with ecology in mind and protecting everybody that way. And it's turned out that many of the coastal commissioners are very friendly with developers. And this is getting to be headline news in Los Angeles. And that amuses me because of the book that I wrote 2 years ago called Going Coastal is the Kate Matthews series. It's the other series I write. And in it, the murder victim is a California Coastal Commissioner. And it deals with the corruption that happens within the California Coastal Commission.
Also, she was a bit of a ball buster, the character that was murdered. She was like the thorn in the side, the person who would not shut up. And not a cuddly character, but at the same time, she was doing something important and necessary.
So whatever is happening politically and this whole atmosphere of politics right now, which is so depressing in some levels and so negative. The second Kate Matthews book is one that I'm working on right now, and she's dealing with a mayor of Santa Barbara who is in the mold of Donald Trump, and she is taking him on. So I guess politics is playing into the writing.
For me, the politics that happen in Finding Fire actually germane to the series. It's paranormal, so it's more the politics of demons. And you're like, how could that possibly relate? I don't know.
It's a different spin on it, but the essential truth is there.
Yes. And also, one of the things that I was trying to work on was having more complicated quote unquote bad characters. And also I kind of shoved in a few antiheroes just for good measure, because some folks felt that, I guess, in one of my books that the evil was too evil. There was no like depth, and I beg to differ. But I also have been actually consciously thinking about having multidimensional bad guys and having things not be so simple. And the bad guys, you just don't know if they're really bad or not, and then you find out in the end, which is a nice little twist.
That's a hard balancing act to do.
Yeah. And what was interesting, you talk about characters not agreeing with dialogue or actions. And Sheila and I have been writing this book. We had an idea. We knew it would had to happen, at least at some point, if not at the ending. We needed someone to be rescued, and we needed one character from the previous book to finally find fire, to find her own voice and strength and confidence. But we didn't know much beyond that. And then as we were writing it, because we'd talk about it, I'd write 2 chapters. The next day we'd read through 2 chapters out loud, make modifications and continue planning between 1 to 3 chapters ahead before, I would sit down and write some more stuff. And what's always so funny for me is seeing how things diverge and how characters grow in a way that we had not anticipated. And when we finished the book, I was like, Sheila, this is so not what I thought we were going to be doing here. And she's like, I agree. Because we tried to start writing it last year after we finished the first, and it just wasn't working. And then we started about 2 months ago, and then we were able to finish it. But yeah, you just don't know what's going to happen. I have some other books that are coming out, like not coming out, but like books that have to be written next. And I don't know that politics is going to find its way into them. Not in a traditional sense, I don't think. What are some of the things that... Are you a pantster? Do you write by the seat of your pants? Or do you...
Yeah.
Okay. Because that would make your relationship with your characters makes more sense now. Of course they would talk.
Oh, yeah.
Of course they would
I can't imagine. I don't know if I'm not disciplined enough, or I'm not organized enough to actually outline a book.
My biggest snafu ever on the Liz McMullen show was when I was interviewing Lynn Ames, and I was talking about 2 books she had written. And normally I don't write any notes, or just minimally I'll write down the names of characters and whatnot, but I had like 3 pages of parallels that I had seen and, things that looked extremely intentional and well thought out and layered, and then I found out she's a pantser. So I had 3 pages of notes that were useless because I felt like a college student. I'm like, but damn you.
But I read all this into it, yes.
But the layers were there, but she doesn't. I think that some pantsers, like especially with Lynn, she does a lot of research. So she may not be having an outline, but I believe in her brain that things have, have been making their own way. So even though it comes out and she doesn't like plan ahead and she only writes when she feels inspired, I still feel like there's some organization going on in her brain. As of me, I need to be a planner because as a person, I'm very circuitous with my thoughts. I'm very tangential. I don't have any way to iron out any of my shows. But in order for me to remain grounded, I need outlines, and I don't have a great memory. So that's why I have pretty elaborate files on the characters and character arcs and the plot lines and whatnot. Otherwise, I'd lose it all. I commend people who can just roll with it. But if I don't have some kind of organization on the onset and some ongoing restructuring and replotting, I'd be all over the place. It would be a mess.
And you're working with someone else.
Yeah, I do. She and I, it's just so funny. Sheila and I, we're so different on paper. But as humans, we think very similarly. She's a Southerner, like big Southerner, the real McCoy, deep South, and that personality and the kindness and stuff, but also then the bless your heart stuff. And I'm an unrepentant Yankee. I tend to be blunt, and where she would kind of be worried about how people would feel and whatnot, sometimes I blunder into things. I can't help it. But when we talk, we're able to organize ourselves. And I also write things on my own, like my romance novels, Unspoken, is coming out next month. So at first, when I started writing with her, I didn't know how I was going to write with somebody until we just sat down and like she wrote a chapter, I wrote a chapter, and it kind of broke the ice and we're able to make progress then. And then after I finished working with her, I was like, how am I ever going to write alone?
Wow.
Because like when you're stuck, or you wonder what you're going to do when you have a co-author, you go like, what should happen next, or what goes on here, or what do you think, or when we're line editing on the phone, I said, should it be this or should it be that? And then she'll answer the question, and that's how we make the decision. But that's fun. But at the same time, it's also I'm much more organized. I have a need for order more than she has a need for order. I think that's more accurate. When I'm writing by myself, I can have a much more tight experience, but at the same time, I think I need to add water to some of my scenes. You'll have to see, to talk to different people, read my stuff. I'm like, I should add water to this. I really should. This is too tight. If you could, would you like to directly speak to your audience? Like, what's something that you would like to tell readers?
What an interesting question. I would say that my whole purpose behind writing is to give a story that people can enjoy, can possibly learn things from, and can serve as a reminder that they're not alone. I grew up being alone in being a lesbian, and there was almost nothing in writing that reaffirmed who I was and what I was feeling. So it's important for me that the lesbian characters in my book be varied, real, be multidimensional, and be positive.
Of course, like I started thinking about some of my characters and spaced the fuck out. This is the reason why I outline. Because if I just let my brain go wherever it's going, I will fall off the edge of the now four-cornered earth. Yeah, it was great to have you on. I really enjoyed having a chance to talk to you, and I'll be seeing you next month.
I'm looking forward to it.